Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network show. My name is Emma Vigeland. Hello, everybody. You know what to do. Subscribe, put on push notifications so you know when this show is going live. YouTube.com/ESVN show. Rate us 5 stars on every podcast platform. Hello, Bradley.
Hello, you sound like Howard Dean.
We've got a great OT for you today. Bradley and I both went 2-1 last week. By the skin of my teeth, by a half point. I won the over in the Ravens game. He lost the under by a half point. It's getting spicy here. Yeah, we've only got 2 more of these to make up for Bradley to make up ground, and it's around, I think it's a 3-game gap. So it's definitely possible. I'm getting a little scared over here.
Yeah, you should be.
I should be.
I got you right where I want you.
Exactly. Well, let's quickly touch on this before we get into NFL news, because this is a major story. There are 5 players who were on the 2018 Canada World Junior hockey team. And for people that don't follow hockey, the World Juniors is like this massive thing, particularly for Hockey Canada, but for young prospects that are going into the NHL. They participate essentially in a tournament. And there was a lawsuit. Allegations last year were made public that there were multiple members of the Canadian World Juniors team that sexually assaulted a woman, or a girl, I should say. Now, the developments are that NHL players are beginning to have to take leaves of absences. 2 Devils players, Michael McLeod and Cal Foote. Carter Hart of the Flyers, huge name there. Dylan Dubé of the Flames. There's also a former NHL player who's playing in Switzerland right now, at a Swiss club, who's the 5th player that's alleged to have participated in this. But the allegations are gruesome. The incident allegedly took place in 2018, and the woman/girl, she's 25 now, so very young still, 18 at the time, around that age. They met her at a bar. They were drunk. She was quite drunk, is I think a part of how they allegedly took advantage of her. There were 7 other people in the room, according to the lawsuit, who participated in a group activity of forcing her to perform sexual activities, and it was against her consent. She was saying so, and they stopped her from leaving, is a part of the allegation. And she also says, and I'm sure there's evidence of this, that she was asked afterwards to take a shower, forced or directed or whatever, by these hockey players, and then say in a video recording that she was sober. And that later on she says that they were kind of trying to get her not to speak to the police. The players that are specifically accused in this are not named in the lawsuit, I believe, but because of these leaves of absences, it's easy to kind of discern, and based on who was on that World Juniors team, who is being talked about here. But this is a pretty massive deal, and in Canada, you know, hockey is the national sport there, basically. So it's been a big story. Nike permanently ended its partnership with Hockey Canada in the summer of last year. There were resignations, and we're at the point now where the hockey players that may have participated are having to leave the teams that they're on in the NHL and abroad. It's pretty scary. And this is also just like not shocking, honestly, if you understand hockey culture. Any kind of sports team, when you have that kind of mentality, right? With guys all together, and when they're feeling like on top of the world, and there's groupthink and immaturity, the kids that might be inclined towards predatory behavior, they're going to go along with their peers. And the other sports have evolved a little bit more than hockey, but as usual, hockey and hockey culture is very conservative and stuck in the dark ages on some of this stuff.
Yeah, and the to what you were saying about Hockey Canada, yeah, like the director of the organization had to resign. The entire board of directors resigned. Nike severed their partnership as in no small part due to the allegations and the ongoing investigations into this incident, including by the NHL as well as by the police department in London, Ontario, in Canada. And we've obviously seen this in other areas, of course, across sports, because even now, something we were talking about last summer, there's going to be a further investigation into the behavior of Luis Rubiales, the head of the Spanish Soccer Federation, for his behavior towards the players after the women's team won the World Cup. So it's obviously not relegated to any one sport, but hockey in particular, I think, sometimes stands out because of how willing and able sometimes the people who are trying or have a vested interest in trying to suppress these stories or kind of tamp down the exposure of them or the awareness of them have been, how successful those people have been, because we've obviously talked about prior the Chicago Blackhawks scandal regarding a member of the organization consistently sexually assaulting and harassing other men in the organization, and due to
the way the locker room covered up,
the way the ownership group, the front office, because of how successful the team was during the season and how they were on a run to the Stanley Cup, that was the express reason to try and tamp it down for as long as they could. And the man in question stayed with the team, received a Stanley Cup ring. Part of the procession. Like, there are examples of this type of brazen conduct and a real willingness to sweep it under the rug for expediency purposes. So this happened 5 or 6 years ago at this point. The wheels of justice, or lack thereof, turn extremely slowly in these circumstances. And I think so, at the very least, perhaps the police officers, the police department encouraging these players to turn themselves in might lead to another step in the process of actual accountability being taken for this story, but for this incident. But that doesn't. I'm not sure if that ever actually accomplishes much for the victim in question, because it happened. So it's a tough circumstance to even read about and consider, but it's obviously even tougher for the person who actually had to experience it and see these people continue their careers afterwards.
Absolutely. So these players are reportedly surrendering to police. We'll see. We'll see if those are the members, and we'll be following the story as more facts develop.
Because one other thing is that I think you may have mentioned this, but this is 5 players, and yet 8 were alleged in the original complaint. So there's not, I don't think, a lot of information so far about who or the other 3 are, if they've been identified, if they've left their teams, if they have been. So I think we'll obviously see if more information in that regard comes out.
Absolutely. In lighter news, the Los Angeles Chargers have hired Jim Harbaugh, national champion. Arguably the biggest asshole in coaching, but maybe they need a little bit of that. That's the situation there.
This is, I think, this is sort of what we were saying on Monday.
Yeah.
For Herbert, if Justin Herbert, obviously, we were theorizing about whether Justin Herbert will stay with the Chargers or.
Well, I was going like galaxy brain, saying since they have this really bad cap situation, it's a $45+ million cap crunch that they're facing in LA, which is crazy. They had the second highest payroll on defense and were one of the worst defenses last year.
Yeah, I mean, when you throw all your money at an aging Khalil Mack. You throw your money at Joey Bosa, who has not been performing as well as he had in his first 2 seasons. You throw the money at J.C. Jackson, who leaves the team, and you still have to pay off the remainder of his contract. This is what happened. Derwin James, who had fallen off a little bit last year with the ostensibly defensive-minded head coach at the helm. So, yeah, this is what happens when you sink a lot of money into ineffective players.
Well, the thing is that who knows how bad like some of those players are at this point, right? Like, I mean, Khalil Mack,
totally. They just have performed poorly even in spite of their talent, right?
Yeah.
Like
he had that one great game. I guess it was either against I think it was against the Raiders where Khalil Mack had a million
7 sacks
this year.
Yep.
But I mean, they just spent like crazy on defense, and it did not help them in any way. And then we've also ranted about the receiving room being so atrocious. And Justin Herbert just not getting enough help. But now they get a quarterback. Like, he was a former Charger quarterback, Harbaugh. And that's why I think it's a really good fit in terms of getting Justin Herbert to play with a little bit more fire. Harbaugh's got that in spades. If I were him, I don't know if this would have been my top choice, except he probably wants to work with Justin Herbert. I mean, that makes sense. But because of that cap crunch, it's projected to be the third worst in the NFL after the Saints and the Dolphins. The Saints are $83 million over the cap. That strategy of keeping the push cap down the road, it's just not, I mean, the team's not very good.
We call that Groundhog Day in New Orleans because it seems like every year since 2012, they've been $83 million over the cap.
But what's amazing, too, is that like it actually was a good week for the Chargers because Tom Telesco, their GM, just got hired by the Raiders.
Yeah. Great to have that guy in the division.
Okay. When is the last time you've seen a general manager get hired a second time in the NFL? I don't think that you could probably... Dave Gettleman.
Gettleman was hired again.
And that was
not
moronic.
Smart.
That's the last one I can think of. Maybe people can can tell me in the but like that. This is not something that is a regular occurrence. And Gettleman was a guy that was poached by Carolina.
With the Cleveland and Seattle.
Yeah,
but I don't
that's
know.
true.
I don't know if he left or was fired at both of them. I can't remember.
No, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. My point is just like
it's not
a
often.
second time, and that was when he got hired by the Browns. That was in 2017 as the general manager.
Yeah.
And you meant the Chiefs and the Browns.
Sorry, yeah, Chiefs and Browns,
not Seahawks.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's a very rare occurrence, and usually you're somebody that has a lot of pedigree.
Yeah, right.
Or you have a link to the organization in the way that Gettleman did.
Don't think we can say the same for Tom Telesco as it stands now.
No, and Gettleman took. I mean, I think it was Cam Newton being a freak that for a few years that made the Panthers that competitive. But like the freak in a good way, just carrying that whole team. But at least Gettleman went to a Super Bowl, right? And you could stomach that. And it was the wrong decision by. I mean, to my much, great pain in my heart. Regardless, it's crazy that they hired Tom Telesco because, look at that cap situation. I mean, they've drafted good players, but a lot of players fell into their lap. I mean, the Dolphins were dumb enough to take Herbert or to take Tua before Herbert, and that kind of fell into their lap. They selected Derwin James, but he was widely considered to be a really strong player headed in. It's a very bizarre choice, in my opinion, by the Raiders. So within their division, I think it's some pretty good news for Chargers fans.
Because also, as you're saying about Telesco, even if the draft is a little bit more luck-based, there were some hits in the sense of, as you're saying, James or Asante Samuel Jr. or Rashawn Slater and Zion Johnson on the offensive line. You also have picks like Kenneth Murray, which he still is not particularly good at linebacker, and basically all of the free agency acquisitions in one way or the other have been a disaster on defense.
I hated the Quentin Johnson
and the Quentin Johnson pick.
I said, why not? Why would they take Zay Flowers? That makes total sense at this point.
And look where we are with Zay Flowers, or even Jordan Addison, or even Tank Dell, or even any of these guys.
Any of those guys. And it always was an issue with the Chargers with injuries because they had some high-end players, but there was not really a deep team. So
right.
Bad news for the Raiders. But
I would not be thrilled by that.
I'd imagine that Harbaugh's going to have a ton of control over the roster.
I can't imagine he would have agreed to do it with the Spanos family otherwise. I'm sure he had to sort of drive a hard bargain of being like, we got to spend money, and I have to approve the way that we spend money.
And I think that he probably has a fairly he has a 5-year contract apparently. I'd imagine a lot of that money is guaranteed, although we'll never know because the coaching contracts
it's always like dark money.
Behind the scenes, right? So I think it's a good hire for them. I really do. I mean, I don't like Harbaugh the guy because I don't know. I mean, I like the fact that he's pushed for players to get paid, but then you hear some of the former players talk about it when he was at Stanford saying, he would say that all the time, and it was because he just wanted to push us to practice more and more, and that was more.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Harbaugh way in both,
or to unionize, right?
I think the Harbaugh way for both of them, for both Jim and John, is that they are tight asses.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's part of their coaching prowess is that they are disciplinarians. They are hard-headed, and they have a high expectation of their players in terms of their work ethic and things like that.
I don't know why the energy that John gives off is just so much nicer than Jim. Jim's kind of like.
So I think the difference is
not a people person.
I don't think that's what I was going to say. Is I think John has that, but he, like, for example, I'm not comparing these two guys one to one, but like Andy Reid has that same thing that Harbaugh has, which is they are both notorious disciplinarians, but they are like sociable.
Yes.
Like they both have some sort of affability. They have some sort of affability about them. Jim Harbaugh does not possess that. He is socially inept, in my view.
Yes.
I don't think he is really skilled at having a conversation with basically anybody.
Right.
Per the many public facing appearances that I've seen of him. So I think that's probably the difference. But for what we were saying about Justin Herbert in particular, about the risk aversion that has been kind of characteristic of Herbert's game.
Yes.
I think someone to not only instill some discipline, but also instill some kind of incentivizing of breaking out of that conservatism.
Some vinegar,
right.
some edge.
Some intensity,
yeah,
exactly.
Some energy.
Actually, because that's also to even right in terms of whether we like Jim Harbaugh or not, he's certainly that intensity and that tenacity and that kind of mentality, he definitely instills that in teams.
Oh, yeah.
You got that in that Michigan team that won the championship this past season for sure, that intensity, that kind of... Because again, we always talk about that nobody believes in us thing, even when it's teams like everybody believes in. Mm-hmm. There's this talent in sort of instilling that, even when it's not, when you don't even need to instill
Bill
it.
Belichick, Andy Reid's doing it right now.
Exactly. When you've been that good and you still have to sort of start from scratch in terms of how do I motivate people who are not necessarily underdogs to almost have an underdog mentality. It's annoying, but it is impactful. Like
it's annoying to the outside, but that's what teams need.
The Golden State Warriors in their championship 2 seasons ago, it's not as if nobody believed in them. They'd won 3 of the last 5 championships, and they still won because they somehow got that into their brains to be like, we are being underestimated.
Exactly.
So I think if Harbaugh can bring a little bit of that to Justin Herbert, we could see a different guy. Totally. With the same talent that we know he has.
That's what I'm hoping for, at least. So I think it's a good hire. It's interesting to see them kind of make this move, and the Falcons are kind of methodically going about things, interviewing Slowick, I saw, interviewing Vrabel. There are a lot of big fish out there, but the Harbaugh thing, apparently Harbaugh wanted to come to LA last year to work with Herbert, and they weren't going to pass on Staley.
We when you have a chance to keep Brandon Staley, you got to take it.
But at the very least, now Harbaugh is coming in with a fresh slate, and he doesn't have Telesco as
which is I think huge as well.
The lame duck general manager. So,
but yeah, other than that, Antonio Pierce was been retained by the Raiders. Mm-hmm. Jared Mayo, the heir apparent to Belichick. I don't know if we mentioned it that was hired by the Patriots. Brian Callahan, Bengals offensive coordinator, has been hired by the Titans.
Questionable.
Kind of a weird move, but I
don't like the Bengals offense at all. The way it's not very creative.
Right. I mean, it's in the sense that I think, as I've said about the Bengals too, in that regard, like, is it Burrow and the best receiving room in the league, or is it Brian Callahan and Zach Taylor? I think we've always had that question.
The thing I will say, I'll give Zach Taylor credit, is that the team is always tough. Like
yes, definitely. They definitely have like for sure. They're definitely tough.
They have toughness,
sure.
but schematically,
right? It's not like intriguing.
It's not impressive,
right?
So I find that questionable, especially when they had Mike Vrabel, who I think is a top 10 coach in the NFL.
And to talk about mentality, you want to change your mentality coach from Mike Vrabel to somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there was the owner there is a little bit petty, is what the scuttlebutt was.
I think also there was like one of the last few weeks of the season, the Titans lost to, I can't remember which team, who had their backup quarterback playing, and that seemed to have really shifted the tide. Like that kind of like, oh, we lost late in the season to a backup QB.
And apparently it also was, he had done some speech about the amazing way that the Patriots go about their business, and that pissed off the owner.
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
Remember what happened with Josh McDaniels. Do not mention the Patriots.
Well, that's
in
what I'm saying.
Setting.
These billionaire owners are so petty, and I forget her name. She inherited the team, the Titans. And they're also cheap. Like I don't think that Vrabel was happy there.
Amy Adams Strunk.
Amy Adams Strunk. Yeah. I mean, I just think that he was probably pretty pissed ever since they made a bunch of moves. Like, I don't think he was ever sold on Malik Willis. And he was definitely not sold on trading AJ Brown. And that worked out really because ownership didn't want to pay him.
It was when the Titans, lost to the Texans when CJ Stroud wasn't playing and Case Keenum was put in. That's, right. I think, part of that sort of shifted a little bit for Strunk, that she was like,
okay,
which is to me frivolous, but
yeah, sure.
But the other big one I think is that just was announced was that the Panthers are hiring Dave Canales as their head coach, the Bucks offensive coordinator, right. which people have been tweeting about, which I find absolutely hysterical, is that people are insinuating that David Tepper was like, this guy made Baker Mayfield look better than he had at any point in his career, basically, since he was on the Browns early on, and he did not look like that on the Panthers. So we got to get the guy that made Baker Mayfield look palatable for
They're
our
literally just like poaching the OC from every serviceable offense in the NFL.
Right.
I mean, I doubt like Evero or Raheem Morris get even a sniff as defensive guys.
I know.
Even though they're clearly better minds than.
And if any defensive guy will, it'll probably be McDonald from the Ravens over Evero or Morris.
Yeah. I mean,
we do the math there, right?
I mean, like, or Wink Martindale, right, who left the Giants in a flame blaze of glory, aka. There was this big power struggle
between him and Dable.
Dable. I mean, look, to be fair, I actually side with Dable on this. I know Dable seems also like someone who might be a little bit difficult to work with, but so is Wink Martindale.
They're two headstrong psychopaths, who love football.
The rumor was that Dable fired the offensive line coach, who was one of his close friends from Buffalo, but Wink Martindale was throwing a fit and cursing because they decided to move on from his buddy, the outside linebackers coach on the team, these two brothers. And so he threw a fit, and Dable was like, trying to make it work. But hey, he's the head coach. Right, that's the situation.
He controls that side of the personnel situation.
Exactly.
So I guess we'll have to see, obviously, until after the playoffs are over. But my prediction is that Ben Johnson... It seems like all signs are pointing towards is that Ben Johnson will most likely be hired by the Commanders.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because I hate him being in the division.
Yeah, right. Yeah. For sure. I get that.
I like Ben Johnson a lot. He's this year's Shane Steichen.
No, I agree. I think he's just like it'll be so interesting to see what the Lions look like without him next year. Yeah, obviously. But then Bill Belichick, I'm thinking maybe we'll go to Atlanta if that continues to go that way. And I guess we'll see if Mike McDonald ends up anywhere.
What about Vrabel? Where does Vrabel go?
And Vrabel, so true.
I feel like Vrabel's a perfect fit for Seattle, but
yeah, that would be cool, actually.
Yeah,
especially to establish a stronger defensive identity in
they
Seattle
have talent
as well.
on that team. They have a lot of talent on that team.
That's the other thing too, is they really do. I just think they just need someone to kind of string that together. Yeah. On the defensive side, because I'm pretty sold on the offense even without Waldron there anymore. But the defense, I think, to just make them kind of more of a ferocious unit, would be cool.
Totally.
So we'll see.
We shall see. All right, shall we do our locks?
Yes, we shall.
ESVN Stone Cold Lock of the Century or the Week.
Oh, it's coming down to the wire.
It is, baby. All right, let's see how we did this past week. I just mentioned it at the start of the show. 2-1 for both myself and Mr. Bradley Alsop. By the skin of my teeth, I hit that over on the Baltimore Ravens Houston Texans game. Bradley did not get it. He did the opposite with the under. It was 43.5. The Texans, despite my confidence, did not cover the spread at 9.5. Bradley was able to hit the Tampa Bay Detroit over very easily, 49. I got Kansas City and Buffalo over 45.5, and Bradley was correct with Kansas City plus 2.5. And let's see if he can repeat it this week. So I'm 28-31-1. Bradley's 25-31-4. Those pushes are killing him, but he still has the opportunity to make up some ground here, folks.
4 pushes is so funny to me.
Hilarious. You had a lot of pushes last year too.
I don't know what it is
It's
with me.
in
I'm
your
the
DNA.
pusher man.
You're a pusher, Katie.
Yeah. What is she's
I'm a pusher, Katie.
She says something about being a drug pusher. I just forgot the exact phrasing in the Burn book.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't seen the new musical version, and I never will because it's not for me.
Oh.
Okay.
NFM.
It's too Mean Girls is too nostalgic for me to see a new Mean Girls movie right now. Anyway, I'm going over 45 with Baltimore and Kansas City. I took the over 45.5 against Buffalo. And I know the Ravens defense is significantly better. It still is too low for offenses led by Patrick Mahomes and by Lamar Jackson. And I just couldn't take any spreads this week. Oh, I should say, we're expanding because there's only 3 games left in the NFL season.
Can you believe it?
We're expanding to props. So this is like the way for us to keep making 3 picks a week. But my first is still an over. I'm going over 45. I think the Baltimore Ravens defense is really, really good. I think it's a little overrated. I will say that. I think they have one of the best linebacking duos in the entire NFL. But Marlon Humphrey has been banged up. And
Ronald Darby was playing in his stead.
The secondary's given up some plays. I mean, not against the Texans, but they've given up some plays. And so I think the secondary's a little banged up. That goes into my second prop. I'm also going with Patrick Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns just because I think they're going to be more conscious given the way that the Chiefs have played recently with Isaiah Pacheco leading the way about stopping the run.
The run game was pretty consistent against the Bills. More consistent than it had been prior. I would say
exactly. So I just think that like that game film is gonna say to the Ravens like
focus on the run.
These receivers are not that talented. Besides Kelsey, hopefully we can try to stop them too schematically as well. So I'm going with the over passing touchdowns as well as the over because I think that like these quarterbacks are going to try to put on a show. And
that's my thinking is that even though I do believe in both of these defenses a lot, I think the Ravens and Chiefs defenses are 2 of the best in the league. I think when you have just truly like the odds-on MVP favorite on one side in Lamar Jackson for this season, then the perennial MVP candidate for the last like half decade on the other side in Patrick Mahomes, you can still have defenses perform well. But when you're playing against this caliber of quarterback on either end, I think it's very possible that they're still going to get theirs in a way because that's just how good they are. It's like basically when you're playing a guy like Luka Doncic or Steph Curry or prime LeBron James or something like that. That like
I just saw the weather's supposed to be super rainy.
Oh, interesting. That sometimes hasn't really stopped Mahomes in certain capacities.
God, why didn't I look this up before? Why didn't I look this up?
I don't
necessarily.
Well, we'll see. It was there. It was. I genuinely. I don't think the elements are as adverse for Mahomes and
I'm
Lamar.
locked in.
You're locked in. But I'm saying I just do think honestly, regardless, like these are 2 superstars playing each other. If the defense could even contain them for like 25 points each, that's still obviously a significant showing for them offensively. But that's who you're playing against.
Yeah, I know. But the 1.5 passing touchdowns thing is also affected by this. Like I really did a bad job of not looking at the weather before.
Well, I'm taking the line against the. I'm taking the Chiefs.
I hear you. This also
and I'm taking the over on yards for Zay Flowers. So
+4 seems.
We're both hoping for some offensive production.
I mean, but +4 seems way too much. I would have thought it would have been 2.5, just given how the Chiefs.
No, that's partially why I'm taking the Chiefs +4 here is because with how the Chiefs played against the Bills, and the Bills, even with the lack of personnel, the defense had been playing really well. In the weeks basically on their winning streak prior to losing to Kansas City. I just think it's too many points to lay out against the Chiefs here, because I just think in this particular tenor of a game, the conference championships, where the Chiefs have been time and time before against such a formidable opponent, I just don't see them not being within 4. I can't until it's proven otherwise to me, until it's actually proven to me that the Ravens are so overwhelming that even the Kansas City Chiefs can't be within 4 of them. I can't possibly fathom it that they can't be that close, even if they lose, even if the Chiefs lose, which I'm not certain of still, because also until the Chiefs actually lose in the playoffs, I can't really fully believe it.
Oh, totally.
Either. That's just why I think it's a little bit too steep of a line, especially for the severity and the intensity and the importance of this particular game.
It's gone up. It was 3 and 3.5 at this point.
Right, I was noticing that too. Right, I think from yesterday.
Like the betting public is basically going more on the Ravens, so the line is moving. I think it's a good pick for that reason as well.
And then I'm also taking Zay Flowers over 43.5 receiving yards, just because I think that Lamar Jackson and him have had a really, really potent connection throughout the entire season. But I just think since the beginning, it's only increased, and their melding and their connectivity is only further increased, and kind of he's prioritized him a lot of different looks. And also what is great about a guy like Zay Flowers, as we talked about so much in the lead up to the draft as well as after, is that this is a guy that, despite his stature, can line up in a lot of different ways. He can line up in the slot, he can go deep, he has a great catch radius for how tall and how sort of slight he is, which he doesn't play that way, which is another important thing. Play strength is not proportionate to how light he is. So he's been a really favorite target of Lamar. So I think if they're getting something going in the pass game, it's going to be through Zay Flowers.
I hear you on that. I also, for my third pick, this is the one I feel most confident in, just because I think that the lines are going to be down. I think that the 49ers will win this game. I'm sorry to say, but I think that they will be down. And why I hated that quarterback sneak that LaFleur called down on 4th and 1 in the red zone against the 49ers last week is because that defensive front is freaking incredible.
Right.
And I think they're going to have a harder time running the ball against the 49ers, and they also won't be able to do that the whole time because the 49ers are a quick passing offense. They score really quickly. And not quick passing, I shouldn't say that. I meant like they're a big explosive play offense.
Yes, absolutely.
So the Lions are going to have to pass the ball. And Jared Goff has hit the over on his passing yards twice so far in the playoffs. I'm hoping that it's the same thing third time. Jared Goff over 260.5 passing yards.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there.
He also doesn't run the ball at all.
Yeah,
so.
Right. It's like you're not worried about him bailing out of the pocket, or you're not worried about any sort of draw play being written up for Jared Goff in that capacity. And as you said, if the running game is even stifled in some significant way with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, obviously against the front that includes, slouches like Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw and Javon Hargrave, the monsters that are on that defensive line.
Yes.
You think especially, and as you said, especially if from the jump there's a situation where all the supporting guys on the offense are firing on all cylinders, and it's a 2-3 touchdown lead, hypothetically, whatever. As you're saying, they're going to want to air it out to try and keep up. So. In that type of game script, certainly, I think Goff will be throwing the ball.
I agree.
And that's also why I had the over on the. I took the over 51.5 points for that very reason, because even if it's the Lions getting stifled, I've been saying this before, I've been impressed with the continued ascent of the Lions offense from where they were earlier in the year, and especially from where they were from last season. This is an offense that these Niners offense in particular is one to exploit ineffective or kind of middling linebacker play, which is the kryptonite of this Lions defense. The linebacking core is still coming on, still matriculating. Jack Campbell is a rookie, first round pick. Alex Anzalone, despite his extension, has been burned on a few routes. He got burned. I mentioned this on Monday. Mike Evans literally almost got a flag thrown at him because they thought Anzalone got burned so bad it was an offensive pass interference when it wasn't. So like that Mike Evans is doing that. Certainly Brandon Ayuk can do that. Deebo Samuel, if he's playing, can do that. Christian McCaffrey can do that. Like, so if there are fireworks, it could be on both ends because of how potent these offenses are. But even if it's on one, the Niners can score a lot.
Oh, they can, and then it's garbage time to cover that spread or to get that over. So, to recap, I'm going now with very, very shaky, sweaty palms. Over 45 now that I've discovered the stupid weather. Please weather change. Baltimore at Kansas City, and Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Goff over 260.5 passing yards. Bradley's going with Kansas City +4 in Baltimore. Zay Flowers over 43.5 receiving yards. Over 51.5 in the Detroit-San Francisco NFC Championship game. Folks, those are our picks against the spread. Enjoy the hell out of this wonderful NFL weekend. I mean, these are the 4 best teams. I feel good about who's left. I like all of them. I'm not a Chiefs hater. We said this before. I'd be happy with Mahomes getting his 3rd ring. The least happy of all of these outcomes, but I'm not. It's not like the Cowboys are winning or something like that or whatever. This could be also, if they get their 3rd ring, I could see Andy Reid walking off into the sunset. So
for sure,
yeah.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wouldn't have minded if the Bills made it ultimately because I love the team, but at the same time, with how the Chiefs looked against the Bills, I was like, okay,
they're the better team.
This is the Chiefs at the right time. With that they're peaking at the right time against the other best team in their conference, and then Lions and Niners. It's like if in peak form, an ideal form, a Lions Niners game is just truly like a fireworks factory, just like off the top rope, just like crazy offense.
Exactly.
But if not, even one, I know one of them will show out on offense in one capacity or the other. So that's exciting for me.
All right. Well, we love to see it, folks. Have a great rest of your week and a great championship conference conference championship weekend. Programming. I will be out on Monday because I am going
That's right.
So we will be back on Thursday. Or maybe we got to figure something out because there's no games. There's 2-week break before the Super Bowl.
Oh well, but we can do we can recap.
We'll probably just do Thursday our regular.
Yeah, we can recap and then
yeah.
talk about whatever.
Because I won't be back until Wednesday. I am going to be in San Francisco, doing a show for our friend Francesca Fiorentini along with her, and then I'm going to stay a day and a half extra to see my family. So appreciate you all. We will see you next Thursday. Bye bye.
Bye bye.